The kitchen light was too yellow that evening. That was the first thing I noticed when my daughter called, the way the overhead bulb cast everything in a color that felt wrong, like old photographs left in the sun too long. I remember thinking I needed to replace it. I remember thinking that because it was easier than paying attention to the sound of her voice. She said my name the way she used to when she was small, and had broken something she wasn't supposed to touch. Mom. Just like that. Low. Careful. I turned off the stove. The soup could wait. She told me she had mailed me something. A priority envelope, she said. She used a FedEx down the street from her office. She said it had already gone out, that it would arrive by Thursday at the latest. She told me not to open it at home alone. She said those exact words, not at home alone, and then she laughed a little, the way people laugh when they've said something that scares them and they want to take the edge off. I asked her what was going on. She said nothing was going on. She said she just wanted me to have some paperwork, important documents, things she'd been meaning to organize. I told her she was 41 years old and healthy as a horse, and she didn't need to be organizing important documents in the middle of a Tuesday. She laughed again. This time it didn't quite land. Just hold on to it for me, okay? Don't leave it out. Put it somewhere safe. I told her she was scaring me. She said, I love you, Mom. I'll call you Sunday. I held the phone after she hung up. The kitchen was still the wrong shade of yellow. The soup on the stove had gone cold without me noticing. She did not call Sunday. My son-in-law called instead. He called at 6:14 in the morning, which was the first wrong thing about it, and when I answered, he said, I need to tell you something about your daughter. He said it the way someone recites a sentence they rehearsed, not the way a man says it when his wife is gone, not the way grief sounds when it's real. My daughter had died in her sleep. That was what he told me. He said she had gone to bed the night before with a headache and he had found her in the morning. The paramedics said it appeared to be cardiac arrest. He said the words cardiac arrest clearly and without hesitation, and in that moment I noticed how strange it was that a man whose wife had just died was speaking in complete, organized sentences. I could not breathe. I could not think. My daughter was 41 years old and ran 3 miles every morning, and had not had a sick day in the last 4 years of her life, except for the strange months she had spent feeling exhausted and nauseated, which her doctor had chalked up to stress and had given her supplements for, supplements my son-in-law had helpfully been picking up from the pharmacy himself because, he said, he liked taking care of her. I did not think about the supplements at 6:14 that morning. I was not capable of thinking about anything except the word gone. I sat down on the floor of my bedroom and I did not get up for a long time. The funeral was held 8 days later. My son-in-law stood at the front of the room in a dark suit and received condolences with a composure that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Not once did I see him cry. Not once did he look undone. His parents stood beside him, his mother in pearls, his father with his hand on his son's shoulder, and the three of them formed a neat, closed unit that I could not find a way into, no matter how many times I tried to approach. When I hugged my son-in-law at the reception, he pulled back first. When I tried to talk to him about the details of what had happened that morning, he said they could discuss all of that at a better time, and he turned to greet someone else. I watched him across the room for the rest of the afternoon. I watched the way he checked his phone twice when he thought no one was looking. I watched the way his mother leaned in close to say something, and how he nodded, slow and deliberate, like a decision had just been confirmed. My daughter built her company from nothing. She had started it at 32 with $12,000 she had saved herself, working out of the second bedroom of the apartment she had before she married him. By the time she died, it was worth close to $3 million, maybe more, depending on the quarter. She had 17 clients. She had 4 employees she treated like family. She had built something real. Her name was on the door. 3 weeks after the funeral, I found the FedEx envelope wedged between a seed catalog and a water bill. I had forgotten it in the fog of everything that had come after. I stood at the mailbox in my driveway and looked at her handwriting on the return address and pressed the envelope to my chest and breathed until I felt steady enough to move. I did not open it at home alone. I drove to my friend's house. She had known my daughter since the girl was 7 years old. I sat at her kitchen table and she made coffee, and she sat across from me, and I opened the envelope with a butter knife because I could not bring myself to tear it. Inside, there was a folded letter, a USB drive no bigger than my thumb, and a photograph. The photograph was of a document. I did not understand what I was looking at right away. It appeared to be a contract of some kind, pages and pages, photographed in sections, each image clear and deliberate, the kind of photographs you take when you are documenting something rather than remembering it. I unfolded the letter. My daughter's handwriting was small and even, and she had always pressed too hard with the pen. I could feel the grooves of the letters under my fingertips as I read. She wrote that she did not want me to worry. She wrote that she might be overreacting, and that if I was reading this and everything was fine, then we could laugh about it together over the phone and I could send the envelope back to her. But she needed me to have it, just in case. Because she did not know who else to give it to. She had been going through the company accounts in January and found something that did not add up. A series of transfers, small enough not to immediately trigger anything, consistent enough that when she finally noticed the pattern, she went back 18 months and realized they had been happening almost from the beginning. Money being redirected. Not stolen outright, nothing so obvious, redirected, through a consulting arrangement she could not find any paperwork for, to a holding company she did not recognize. She started digging. The holding company was registered in Delaware. The registered agent was a law firm. But when she dug further, deeper than most people would know how to dig, she found a name attached to an earlier filing. His father's name. She wrote that she had not told her husband what she had found. She wrote that when she first discovered it, she had wanted to sit down with him and ask him directly, but something stopped her. A feeling. The way he had been a little too calm whenever she mentioned the accounts. The way his parents had started coming around more in the past year, inviting themselves to dinners, suggesting she take on a new business manager, a man she had never met, to handle the administrative side so she could focus on growth. She wrote that she had gotten sick in the fall, tired in ways she had not been tired before, headaches that sat at the base of her skull, nausea that came in waves without warning. She wrote that the doctor said it was stress and gave her supplements, and she had started taking them, the ones her husband picked up for her, the ones he set out on the kitchen counter next to her glass of water each morning because, he said, he wanted to make sure she didn't forget. She wrote that she had stopped taking them 3 weeks ago, quietly, without telling anyone. She had been pouring them out each morning and pretending to swallow. And in those 3 weeks, she had felt better. Not completely well, but better. The headaches had eased. The nausea had become less constant. She wrote that she might be wrong. She wrote that she hoped she was wrong. She wrote that she had spoken to an attorney, not the firm her husband used, a different one, a woman who had been recommended by a colleague, and that she had made some changes to her estate documents. Everything she owned went to me now. The company, the accounts, the house she had bought before the marriage and kept in her own name, all of it. The attorney had the originals. The copies were on the USB. She wrote that she loved me. She wrote that she was probably overreacting. She wrote that if something happened to her, I should not be alone when I talked to anyone connected to her husband. My friend poured more coffee. Neither of us touched it. We sat at that table and I read the letter twice, and the second time I got to the end, I understood with a certainty I could not explain and could not undo that my daughter had known. She had known something was wrong, and she had tried to protect me from a distance because she was afraid and did not know who she could safely trust in her own home. I made myself breathe. I called a lawyer the next morning. My daughter had written down the name of the attorney she had used, and that attorney confirmed everything. She had copies of the new estate documents. She had received them directly from my daughter 6 weeks before her death. Everything my daughter described in the letter was documented, filed, and legal. I did not call my son-in-law. I did not call his parents. I said nothing to anyone except my attorney and my friend. 2 weeks later, my son-in-law came to my house with his parents and their lawyer. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon without calling first. 4 of them on my front porch, my son-in-law, his mother, his father, and a man in a gray suit carrying a leather document folder. I stood at the door and I looked at them and I thought about my daughter's handwriting, the grooves her pen had left on the page. I let them in because my attorney had told me to let them in if this happened. She had prepared me. She had told me what to say and what not to say, and what to do when they handed me paperwork. His mother did most of the talking. She said she knew this was a difficult time. She said everyone was grieving. She said she wanted to make sure everything was handled properly, that my daughter would have wanted things taken care of in an organized way. She said that as the surviving spouse, her son had certain legal interests in my daughter's estate, and they had come to discuss how to proceed collaboratively as a family. The lawyer opened his folder and set papers on my coffee table. I looked at the papers. I looked at my son-in-law. He was sitting across from me with his ankle crossed over his knee, easy and relaxed, like a man who expected no resistance. I told them I would have my attorney review any documents before I responded to anything. I told them she was available and happy to be in contact with their lawyer directly. I told them they were welcome to leave their paperwork and I would see to it that nothing was discussed or decided without proper legal representation on my side. His mother started to say something about keeping things simple. I told her nothing about this felt simple to me, and I thought it might be best if they left now so that I could take care of things the right way. They left. His father gave me a long look on the way out the door, the kind of look that was meant to feel like a warning. I closed the door behind them and stood in my hallway until I heard the car pull out of the driveway. Then I called my attorney. She had already been in contact with the district attorney's office. She had been in contact with them since the week before, because when she had reviewed the contents of the USB drive and cross-referenced the financial documents my daughter had photographed, she had found something beyond the stolen money. She had found records of purchases, specific purchases made through a medical supply account for compounds that in certain doses over time could cause the kind of cardiac episode that would look, on a preliminary examination, like natural heart failure in a woman with unexplained fatigue and elevated stress markers. The toxicology report had been expedited. My daughter's body had been exhumed. They found it. The compound was there, accumulated over months, exactly the way my daughter had described feeling gradually, quietly, a slow erosion that would have been invisible if anyone had been looking for something sudden. My son-in-law was arrested on a Wednesday. His father was arrested the same day on charges related to financial fraud and conspiracy. His mother was taken in for questioning and charged 2 weeks later when investigators found her communications with her son about the timing, the amounts, the plan for the business once my daughter was gone. The company my daughter built passed to me in full, exactly the way she had arranged. Her attorney stood beside me when I signed the transfer documents. I kept all 4 of her employees. I kept her name on the door. I sat in her office the first afternoon I went in alone. Her desk was still the way she had left it, neat except for one corner where she had stacked things she meant to deal with later, a coffee mug she had never returned to the break room, a photograph of the 2 of us at her graduation pinned above her monitor on a small strip of cork. She was laughing in it. Her head was tipped back and she was laughing at something I had said, something I could no longer remember, and she looked like herself, completely like herself, in a way that sat heavy and sweet in my chest at the same time. I had not been able to think about the details of what had happened to her without feeling like I was being pulled under. I had not let myself sit still with it until that afternoon in her office because I had been moving too fast, doing too much, keeping myself busy with attorneys and paperwork and the logistics of justice, as though stillness would break something open that I could not close again. I sat in her chair. I looked at the photograph. She had known. She had been frightened, and she had known, and she had found a way to fight back that did not require her to confront anyone directly, because she understood the danger she was in better than anyone gave her credit for. She had documented everything quietly. She had moved her assets legally and carefully. She had placed the most important things in the hands of the one person she was certain would not be reached, influenced, or frightened. She had placed them in my hands. I was 63 years old and I had spent a long time thinking that being a mother meant watching your children from a distance once they were grown, hoping they were all right, waiting for Sunday phone calls. I had spent a long time thinking I had done my part, given what I had to give, and that the rest was hers to carry. She had given me the last thing she had to give, and she had trusted me to carry it. I sat in her office until the light through the window turned the same shade as late afternoon, and then I picked up her mug, rinsed it in the break room sink, and set it back on her desk where she had left it. I turned off her lamp. I locked the door behind me. I walked to my car in the parking lot and I called my friend and I told her it was done. She asked me if I was all right. I thought about the yellow kitchen light that had been the wrong color the evening my daughter called. I thought about the way I had heard something in her voice that I had not let myself name, because to name it would have made it real, and I had needed her to still be fine for just a little longer. I told my friend I was not all right. Not yet, but I would be. The trial took 11 months. I sat in the courtroom for every day of it. I wore the small gold earrings my daughter had given me for my last birthday, the ones she had said would look beautiful on me, even though I told her I was too old for delicate things. I wore them every single day until the verdict came back. My son-in-law was convicted. His father was convicted. His mother took a plea. When the verdict was read, I did not make a sound. I had thought I might. Had been half afraid I would cry out, or collapse, or do something my daughter would have gently teased me about later. But I sat still and I listened, and when the word came I felt something leave my body, something I had been holding in my shoulders and my jaw and behind my sternum since the morning of that phone call at 6:14. Something heavy. Something I had been carrying so long I had forgotten it had weight. Outside the courthouse my attorney shook my hand. She said my daughter had been a meticulous woman. She said in her years of practice she had rarely seen someone think so clearly under that kind of pressure. I told her my daughter had always been the smartest person in any room. I told her that even when she was 7 years old and had broken something she wasn't supposed to touch, she had come to me first, before anyone else, because she knew I would help her figure out what to do. I drove home the long way, past the street where she had grown up, past the school where I used to watch her run in from recess, always the last one in because she never wanted to stop. The town looked the way it always looked, unremarkable and familiar, the kind of place that keeps going no matter what happens inside the houses lining its streets. I went home. I changed the kitchen light bulb. I made the soup I had let go cold 11 months ago, the same recipe, the same pot. I sat at the table and I ate it slowly in the quiet of the house. On the counter there was a picture I had framed and brought home from her office, the one of the two of us at her graduation, her head tipped back, laughing. I told her she did good. The house was quiet. The light was right. The soup was warm. I told her she did good, and I meant it with everything I had.